Welcome to episode 20 of the Women's Cricket Podcast, a show where we talk about all things women's cricket. 20 episodes in about 5 months in. Neha, first of all, of course, we must be happy about the fact that we've stuck through 20 episodes, hopefully a lot more to come.
Absolutely, Akshay. I think this is a milestone that we should be very proud of because I don't see a lot of other portals, doing this. I mean, except of course mine. I don't want to boast about that.
Please plug that in.
Yeah. But I think the Women's Cricket Podcast has also, kind of built this community, and we're trying something different. So your support is also very important. But I think, a couple of interesting things to discuss today as well.
100%. And guys, like always, please comments maybe batayega. What do you make of this new format that we're trying, and do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you have any feedback for us? Importantly, the more you comment, the more you like, the more YouTube's algorithm thinks, okay, you know what, this is content that we should be showing to more people. Please help us out, do us a world of good. Smash that like button. Also comment, what have you made of the new format? Of course, lots to talk about. Like Neha said, first up, the England-West Indies series that's going on right now. By the time the episode goes out, the third ODI would be live and up and running, of course. Hayley Matthews not available. Big blow for them. But the first ODIs, it's just been West Indies sneaking out so easily.
Yeah, and I think it's just probably a case of England being more dominant. This is home conditions for them. This is the start of, the Charlotte Edwards and Nat Brandt era. They couldn't have possibly asked for a better start. But England on both occasions, kind of were put in a situation where they had to bat first. And they just, piled on those runs, right? Both the matches getting to, those 300 plus totals. Largely driven by the kind of contributions that, the likes of Tammy Beaumont, Amy Jones and the other batters coming later in the order, just being able to step up and deliver. Mind you, this is an England side that is without Heather Knight, who has unfortunately been ruled out because of injury. Yet you have these two individuals, standing up and delivering. They, in fact, even wrote themselves into history books, with that 200-run partnership. And even Amy Jones, bringing in those consecutive centuries. The kind of synergy, again, with Tammy Beaumont is remarkable to see. Again, it is to be seen, how they fare against perhaps the better teams. And Akshay, I think you have a stat that you would love to enlighten us with later. But all in all, it just looks good for England right now. They're able to put up such big totals so that bowling doesn't really have to, sweat themselves or get really worried if they can defend it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the stat that you were talking about, again, I cannot take credit for it as much as I'd love to. I came across this stat. We'll probably put that over here with the credit.
Yeah.
Amy Jones, Tammy Beaumont, when they've opened in about 12 or 13 innings in all. 6 versus India and Australia, and then, of course, 6 or 7 versus the rest. Against India and Australia, who are arguably the toughest opponents right now in women's cricket, they average in single digits. And versus the rest, they average in excess of 200.
You can imagine,
so, good on them for maximizing against the lesser known sides, but averaging 8 or 8.3 or whatever it was. I don't think it's really becoming off a top opening pair or a top side. Again, goes without saying that
sample size?
Yeah, this isn't a reflection of how good or bad the players are. We would still say, if they've done so well, might as well give them a longer rope against the better nations as well, and you might see them flourish there too. The two of them, of course, have been phenomenally good. They've also been, the West Indies bowlers, that is, have also been guilty of offering way too many freebies. The fielding effort in general was so poor. Almost every effort in the outfield was met with a groan from Ian Bishop. I felt for him. I felt for him. मतलब इतना बुरा लग रहा था मेरे को Ian Bishop के लिए कि भाई हर बार बॉल आउटफील्ड में जाता है. Oh, you'd imagine that this would be fielded. Oh my goodness, this has also been misfielded. क्या करेगा? Catches dropped. Fielding not up to the mark.
The bowling changes itself, it has been quite ridiculous in that sense. I think they're missing, Hayley Matthews, the captain, and the player herself. I mean, the unfortunate shoulder injury that has ruled her out for the rest of the series. I think that sort of a tactical acumen is missing, largely.
Again, I'll be a bit more harsh. Hayley Matthews, the player, huge miss goes without saying. Hayley Matthews, the captain, I don't know.
You're still on the fence?
Because in general, मैंने वो World Cup qualifier में भी देखा था. I don't think of her as a very good captain, but Hayley Matthews, the player, more than makes up for whatever she lacks as a captain. So make no mistake about it. West Indies team and any team for that matter would be better with her and not without her. And the fact that she's had to miss out both the second and the third ODI has this. The gulf is very clearly visible. In the first ODI too, I felt that dismissal was so innocuous. Yeah, she looked in such good rhythm. And who was it? Arlett, if I'm not wrong, who dismissed her.
I think I'm Arlett,
It was just caught behind. It came out of nowhere. She was looking in such great nick. She was driving everything that was full. She was cutting and pulling with ease. And then out of nowhere, she just nicked one to the keeper. Kiana Joseph came out with this half century, and once again, it just keeps on proving me wrong. But some of the bowling plans of Kiana Joseph, sorry, I'm probably jumping the gun there. Once again, Kiana Joseph arguably is one of the easiest players to plan to. And make no mistake, I'm not disrespecting Kiana over here. In fact, credit to her. We've been talking about how she's just a leg side dominant player. She hardly has any game on the offside. She's improved on it. You see the first ODI that she played, she missed out the second due to fever. You could actually see a couple of drives that came from, and she got fours out of it because the field placements were such that even the England team were banking on her just playing or accessing
the lofty shots.
Yeah, exactly. There were a couple of shots where Charlie Dean nicely floated it up outside off stump to bait her to play, through the offside, and she went through with it. She did. She executed them well as well. So good on her. But I still think, अगर अच्छे से plan करोगे, so you can get her out fairly early. The fact that you made her sweep, you made her pull, you made her flick, you made her play or access the leg side region so often, so easily. Just felt कि वहाँ पे थोड़ा, once again, if you are, the margin for error against teams like West Indies would be a lot more higher. So you need to ensure कम से कम यहाँ पे you are controlling the controllables, which I don't think England have done as well as they would have liked. Of course, the scoreline, the margins would depict a very different picture.
And because I think England has won, a lot of the problems are probably just going to get pushed under the carpet and will get exposed against the bigger teams. I mean, just let's talk about the opening pair itself. Maya Bouchier was used for the longest time, but then clearly, they probably just want to let her play in the domestic side of things as much as possible. So again, with the Amy Jones, Tammy Beaumont combination, I think it's a makeshift arrangement. It is not something that, they're looking at probably for the long term, and it is just to get through probably this World Cup. Because again, it just doesn't seem like, a very well thought out sort of decision. You have so many players in the domestic circuit who are doing well. But this is, I think, just for the sake of stability, and because, they are missing Heather Knight, probably that sort of a mix-up, so you could have more, experience up top. That definitely has to be one of the problems that England is masking right now. It's not getting as exposed because they're on the right side of the result. So probably, it isn't getting the attention it needs.
That's actually an interesting point you mentioned there, because I was also thinking of the same. How much of a role did Heather Knight's absence play over there? Sure, Maya Bouchier, maybe her own lack of form in this format might have played a role, but South Africa में उन्होंने decently किया था white ball formats में, both T20 and ODIs. But the fact that Heather Knight wasn't available meant that, they had to bring in someone like an Emma Lamb. And which meant Nat Silverbrand also usually bats at number 3, now batting at number 4. And because of that shift there, they had no option but to play Amy Jones at the top. Simply because you cannot then have a very packed middle order. And Sophia Dunkley also now, she's batting at number 5, number 6 and hasn't done too badly so far. As Alice Capsey too, exactly. So it is an interesting change that they've gone for. Clearly forced changes these. But we also know that Heather Knight is right now struggling for time to make it for the World Cup. So assuming that she won't be available for the World Cup, then this is something they will have to realistically consider. Ki bhai, World Cup they might have to go ahead with an opening pair that consists of Amy Jones and Tammy Beaumont. Unless, Maya Bouchier comes in and just throws a hat in the ring, has a fantastic 100 series, or maybe the Royal Bank One Day Cup is done, if I'm not wrong, this season.
The 50 overs one is still going on.
It's still going on. So in case if she does well there too, then maybe, but I don't know how much of a possibility that is, because Amy Jones has clearly sealed her spot for the India series at least.
And be used as a floater anywhere.
Exactly. I don't think England is playing any ODI between the India series and the World Cup right now, as things stand. Yeah. So which means that they don't have too much time to experiment or bring in Maya and see if she's good enough right now, if she's doing well in terms of recent form. So I think Amy Jones might have already sealed her spot as the opener for the World Cup too. With performances like these, again, too hard to ignore, right? Something we were talking about Pratika Rawal as well. As the incumbent, she hadn't done anything wrong. She done everything she could have possibly done, and which is why she's also been rightfully rewarded a spot in the Indian side for the England tour. Same is the case with Amy Jones, and unfortunately because of the fact that they don't have too many more games, it's such a classic case of, butterfly effect just playing out. Heather Knight kahin pe injure hoti hai, which means they'll have to bring in Emma Lamb, which means that probably the middle order seems to pack, so they decide to give Amy Jones at the top a shot. Interesting that, and it's worked out wonders for them. Emma Lamb herself, by the way, not too bad at all. I know she's still fairly young, very inexperienced, but she's played only about 15-16 games so far, but she looked good. And that's all that matters, and I'm actually looking forward to seeing a lot more of her against India. The Indian side's own pace attack might not be the strongest, which might once again tilt the scales in England's favour. But that's where I think I'm expecting the likes of Arundhati Ho, या फिर even Kranti Gaut to, Amanjot potentially even, step up and do the job for them. So it is going to be a very interesting series. Both sides have injury concerns, and you've exactly like you said, that England batting lineup, which is in great form, versus this Indian pace attack, which is barely a pace attack, to put it bluntly.
Slightly thin right now, under-tested as well, so to say, but it's probably going to be a battle of the batting sides for England.
100%, and that's why England's bowling will also come to the fore. Both the Lawrence, Bell and Filer, they've been really good so far this series. Add someone like an Arlott who's actually done pretty decently.
Absolutely.
As the fourth pacer, that to Natseva Brunt to hai. Bowling mein, you've got Charlie Dean. You've of course got.
Sophie Ecclestone comes back in.
Hopefully, exactly. That being the operator word. Abhi pata nahi. We were told ki rested, ye sab, wo sab. Let's see.
Lindsay Smith herself has been doing incredibly well. So I'm excited to see how she fares too, right?
Lindsay Smith was the other name. Exactly. Sarah Glynn to hai. Lindsay Smith is the other name because in Sophie Ecclestone's absence, she will be expected to play a bigger role and she's done pretty well so far this series. So good on them. So England is definitely looking like a well-oiled machine, especially in home conditions. So series mein to maza aega. I'm actually super excited for that India-England series. I know we were supposed to be talking about England-West Indies, but a slight interlude to that. Coming back to the Windies themselves, they are next scheduled to play South Africa. So clearly there are a few names that they're also blooding in. We saw someone like a Grimmond make her debut there. Yeah. The first innings wasn't exactly the greatest of starts for her. Maybe a bundle of nerves. Exactly. A straightforward dolly drop to Amy Jones. There were a couple of misfields as well. But she made amends, with the bat in hand. I don't think West Indies necessarily missed out on Hayley Matthews. 50 mara unhone, something Hayley Matthews is used to doing at the top of the order for them. What did you make of that debut?
I think it was an interesting one for sure. West Indies have, often found themselves really struggling in the series, put under the pump every, given time. So it was nice to see some match winners emerge, and I think Grimmond has really made a case for herself. I think in the domestic side of things also, I remember this name being thrown around a lot. She could be the next big thing. And making an impact versus a team like England will definitely keep her in good stead and in contention for West Indies. Just going ahead too. Not a part of the World Cup, that's fine. But again, when you have match winners emerge like this, I think it's definitely going to do a world of good. With respect to confidence for that player and for the setup at large, because when you just think of West Indies, the one name that just predominantly crops up has to be that of Hayley Matthews, who is, carrying the responsibility and the burden. Something we did allude to in our last episode as well.
Yeah.
Like, they depend on her performances so much. Deandra Doughton, Stephanie Taylor and all of them. These are players you would expect them to, win you matches, but it's not going to happen every single time. So it's nice to see, Grimmond kind of just make that impact. Hope she goes well for the rest of her career.
And Taylor ka bhi interesting tha, didn't play the first ODI, came in for the second ODI. I don't know how much of it was also down to Hayley Matthews not being available. Thoda experience kuch to chahiye. Not that there was, that big a difference. The margin was still, very similar to what it was in the first ODI. I just hope for a change West Indies get to bat in the last ODI one, because
bat first, just put up a big total,
Big total नहीं तो 50 overs खेल लो तुम और फिर वहां से देखो अगर bowling कुछ कर पाए. But that batting lineup, one name that I was actually quite pleasantly surprised with was Claxton. Batted at number 8, number 9, but she actually has the shots. She has the range. She looked pretty good. Footwork अच्छा था, because like if I'm being very honest with you, between Grimmond and Claxton looked like a more assured batter. Okay. I know Grimmond got the run. She scored a 50 on debut, but she looked fairly scratchy to begin with, and also some of the shots seemed very
forced, maybe?
Forced in the sense, I don't know how to put this. It's
very agricultural, probably.
Agricultural, let's go with that. Okay. Yeah. Unorthodox agricultural. So that we again might be a bit of bias coming in, as people who've followed the sport for so many years, there's a certain way, exactly. There's a certain way of batting that comes more naturally to our minds. So, what, this person looks like a batter a lot more than the other person. So, I'm not saying Grimmond's a poor batter or Claxton's a better batter. Just saying that she looked a lot more assured. Grimmond, some of the shots, including there was this one short ball that Nat bowled. Not even sure, it was back of the length, rising up to her chest. She's fairly short. She just played this essay. She flared it away towards the cow corner region. Not something you usually see. वो deliveries को हम लोग usually square पे मारने का देखते हैं, you know, people either hit
Pull
it,
shots
yeah, exactly, square leg region or hook it, you know, behind square or something like that. She just went for it front of square. It seemed very interesting to say the least. She was effective. That's all that matters at the end of the day. Glasgow got a decent cameo in. You saw it was the sort of lower middle order that was doing well for them. Even in the last game, they were what 130, 140 odd for 8. The likes of Glasgow, the likes of Claxon, even Karishma Ramirak at number 10. They were the ones making you know, some useful contributions to ensure that West Indies crossed the you know, 200 run mark. Zaida James, yaar, matlab gussa aa raha hai ek to. Firstly, with the ball, it's been a very interesting tactic by West Indies that they've used her first up. सीधा new ball उन्हीं को दिया. First over has been bowled by Zaida James across the 5 games that have happened in England so far, the 3 T20Is and the 2 ODIs. And opening भी क्या भी यार, just
I mean, I think for the longest time we did kind of vouch for her to bat up top, but it hasn't been that impressive, or she hasn't made the most of her opportunities. Hope to be proven wrong, probably, you know, in the course of time.
yeah, I mean, she's got the shot. I don't know why does she sort of get into a shell. That first ODI, I was so disappointed. She was at 7 of 27, 28 or something, and I thought, you know what, she's taken her time. Now's sort of the opportunity for you to make amends. Yeah. She got out there. 7 of 29. Like, yaar, matlab, kitna, it was very disappointing because I really think there's a lot of potential there. And same thing, just like I said, how Claxon probably looks like the more assured batter. Between Zaida and Kiana Joseph, I really think Zaida is the better batter. But Kiana has been a lot more effective. She's the one who's got runs under her belt. Not the case with Zaida James. She's yet to do that, and I hope at least in the third ODI she does that. But of course, with the ball in hand, Cherry-Ann Fraser, Alia Len, it's been more hit.
Mixed bag,
Yeah, but it's been more miss than hit in all fairness. None of them have really clicked. Afi Fletcher, big disappointment. Karishma Ramirak, not too bad, but again, in those conditions, there's only so much that you can expect an off spinner to do. That's where you would expect Afi Fletcher with the googlies, with the flippers to sort of come good for her side. Hasn't been the case. She's been woeful. Long hops bahut zyada dala hai. She's been very inconsistent with her lengths. And for a wrist spinner, it's all about being consistent, especially with your lengths. Hasn't been the case with her. You could see how that's led to the West Indies bowling attack just not being good enough, because she's one of the rare wicket takers there, probably along with Hayley Matthews. Now, Matthews with her shoulder injury not being available means they hardly have anyone taking wickets. What, the opening pair in the first 2 games have accumulated about 400 runs, if I'm not wrong.
Already.
So
It's just 2 matches we are talking about. I agree with you that the West Indies bowling does look very listless. It's not that when we were entering the series, we had a lot of expectations, you know, West Indies will go on to win, but at least put up a fight, you know. This is again an England side that's figuring things out, has a lot of, you know, boxes to check. So we thought the West Indies would be able to at least challenge them in some regards, but so far it hasn't happened. I hope, you know, by the time the episode drops and the third ODI would be underway, we get to see some semblance of a fight. You'd want to end the series on a high, considering how poor the, you know, T20 side of things was. Hayley Matthews was the player of the series, you know, in spite of being on the
in spite of being whitewashed. Matlab, how bizarre is it? It's not even like it was a closely fought series, 2-1, nothing.
Third T20, like England won by just 17 runs. West Indies did, you know, come almost close, but then just botched it. But yeah.
Beach me, they were very close. In fact, they were winning. But then towards the end, they'd already lost the game much before that 70-run margin thing happened also. But anyways, yeah, sure. If that helps them sleep at night, sure, let them. But it was a 3-0 whitewash, so no one can deny that. But make no mistake, tonight would be the third and final ODI between England and West Indies, and that would be the culmination of the West Indies tour of England. After that would be the Indian side touring over there, and that starts on the 28th of June. Nottingham, Bristol, Manchester, Nottingham, Bristol, London, Manchester, and of course Birmingham. That's the those are the venues for the T20Is, and then of course you've got the 3 ODIs coming up. There's one happening at Lodge to the second ODI, so lots of excitement. 2 sides that we are looking forward to really, and something we spoke about earlier as well, the reasons why we think this would be a very well contested series, and it would make for some great viewing. Hopefully we see some spectacular
record crowds.
Individual performances as well, and crowds too. Yours truly would hopefully be there for some games as well. But of course, coming back closer home, the World Cup venues are finally announced, Neha. Bangalore, Indore, then you got Vaishak and Guwahati. These were the 4 venues in India that were announced, along with Colombo, of course, partly because of the India-Pakistan agreement. Exactly. But happy with the fact that Namma Bengaluru gets to host the World Cup final.
Absolutely, Akshay. I think in the aftermath of everything that has happened, probably this was just one happy news that Bengaluru has gotten the opportunity to host, this Women's ODI World Cup. Probably on the lighter side, I really thought it's because, Bengaluru has flights that connect to Colombo that, this could have
Could
been
be the case. Yeah.
that that it was considered. But in all fairness, I think Bengaluru has been the home of women's cricket. We've seen some fantastic turnout for WPL, irrespective of it being an RCB match or not. And you just see, right, the crowd here does have that knowledge and that support for women's cricket. So it was fitting that we did get the opportunity to host a few games. Would have loved to see the other venues as well. Probably we have spoken at length about this in our other episodes too. But all in all, I think just really happy and pleased that Bengaluru gets his due. But I hope the other venues can really, really prove us wrong and we get to see that sort of a turnout as well. It's a World Cup. We need to, rally around our girls and for women's cricket at large. And this is a home World Cup. It's coming home almost after 12 years.
Yeah.
A lot on the line.
I, for one, am super excited and just thinking about the fact it'll be amazing if India wins their first ever Women's World Cup in Bangalore. And it would be even great if I'm there to watch it live,
The
of
first
course.
match and the final is happening in
Yeah, so the tournament opener on the 30th of September and the final on the 2nd of November, both would be hosted by Bangalore. One of the semi-final one will be hosted by Bangalore. Semi-final two
Semi-final two is in Bengaluru. One is in either
Guwahati or Colombo, of course, based on if Pakistan qualify. So I'm expecting a few big games also being awarded to Bangalore simply because of the fact that, like Neha said, the crowds over here have been fantastic. Not just for RCB games, because a lot of people might point out to the fact that RCB they have a lot of fans so aayenge. Just go back to the India-South Africa ODI series that happened last year, man. It was chock-a-block. It was packed. It was completely packed. You could hear, of course, there were a lot of chants of Smriti naturally being sort of a de facto local girl now. But there was a lot of support for the Indian side, and that's all that matters. And I'm excited, and hopefully we will get to see packed crowds and record crowds in Bangalore too, and of course in the likes of Vizag, Indore, and Guwahati too. Interesting choice of venues though. Vizag and Indore were a part of the initial list along with Mullapur and Thiruvananthapuram. In fact, BCCI also came out with a release that stated that Mullapur wasn't well received by the other boards, which is one of the reasons why they sort of chose to stay away from it.
They haven't hosted any women's games there so far, right? So it kind of made sense that they didn't go ahead with it.
Exactly. But why do you think should it only be bigger venues? Sure, you brought up how, it would have been great if Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, all of them got to host games. I, for one, think having this one hero venue is good enough. One of Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. And then you have other smaller venues too, simply because that would help you also sort of push or expand
Grow the game.
to newer audiences and see how they reciprocate. So I'm happy about it. What do you think? Like, do you still think that they could have probably done better, or are you content with the choice of venues?
To be honest, I'm not content with the choice of venues still. When we look at the World Cup, this is a marquee event. You'd want to give it to your best possible venues. Why is women's cricket an afterthought? That you have your men's T20 World Cup later, so we'll give the better venues to them, and whatever leftover is given for the women's ODI World Cup is definitely not the right way of thinking at all. Because when you look at the likes of Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, all of them have very good capacity venues. You will see the kind of turn out for that, because this is a World Cup, right? This is not any other bilateral series. See, this is again me not telling, that the venues that have been chosen now are like bad or they don't deserve to host. But I think just for a World Cup to experiment with these venues for a women's World Cup is still, I think, a very big risk that you're taking, because everything does eventually boil down to the optics, right? And if you don't see the kind of turnouts in these other venues, it just doesn't augur well for the game. And I'm confident that in the other marquee venues, you will see crowds turn up, and it also shows the kind of intent that the board has to women's cricket. You would give your best possible venues to them. I think we will be talking about this point later, that the India-Australia series that's happening in September as well, it was allocated to Chennai, and now there's problems of outfield and all of that. I don't think this would happen for a men's event or a men's series as well. Again, this is not me bringing like the men's versus women's sort of thing, the equality and all of that, but it just seems very like that sort of a afterthought sort of behavior to women's cricket, which is just unacceptable on all levels. And again, if it was a men's ODI World Cup, we wouldn't see, like random venues being allocated which don't have a history or a connect to the game at all. So I just find it very bizarre in that sense. I know a lot of people will have opinions on this, but at least I'm not content with the venues. But Chalo, I'd be happy to see, if crowds do end up coming in
fair.
and would be very happy to be proven wrong.
I mean, it goes without saying. There's no denying the fact that there is preferential treatment, but I would still say a lot of it is justified in the way both sports work and the amount of revenue that one sport brings in vis-a-vis the other. Something I've spoken about earlier as well. It's all about being practical. Because there's one sport that brings in more bums on the seats, that sport would be given greater priority as things stand. The day that the board feels that, you know what, women's cricket is being watched by a comparable size of audience, then they would definitely be a lot more keen on, providing bigger, popular venues to them as well, a lot more frequently. That is not that they aren't doing that enough right now, but here's somewhere I would probably cut some slack. On the Tamil Nadu bit, of course, let's just talk about that too since you brought it up briefly. I just don't know. It's so bizarre because when BCCI announces a schedule for any tour, it's not like BCCI does it by themselves. They take the state board into consultation, the curators, okay, if not the curators, at least relevant stakeholders would be involved. Yeah, the TNCA would be consulted ki boss, September mein series hai, we want to host it here. Shall we go ahead? What do you think? What are your thoughts? Weather forecast kya hai? Do you think there'll be any rain? What do you think the surface will be like? All of these things are considered. At least I hope they are being considered because men's cricket mein to wo hota hai. Now you're telling me that the board had no clue that they were going to host or they were going to be awarded the games. That's so random. And again, why do you have to sort of wash your dirty laundry out in the open? Agar ye sachmuch tha, if DNCA wanted, they could have very well just told the BCCI in private, you know what, boss, sorry, yeah, this cannot be done. The fact that they chose to just bring it out in the open, ki we don't know what happened, this makes you wonder ki kya chal raha hai yaar? What is this nonsense?
That attitude just doesn't sit well with me. And Chennai is again a venue that I was really looking forward to because I think during the South Africa series we did see that.
Yeah, the test and the T20Is, that's true.
Crowds did come in there, so this is very unfortunate. I feel for the fans of Chennai who won't get to, see a proper marquee India-Australia series happening there as well. Yeah. Unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate for sure, and of course they haven't announced any venue yet. But again, these are the kind of sort of guffaws or mishaps that you don't want to see from the richest cricket board in the world. Yeah, agar Zimbabwe karta, Bangladesh karta, maybe you will give them some benefit of doubt. You know what, they don't have enough money, they're probably not coordinating properly. You are supposed to be, one of the better managed boards in the world. Exactly. This is as unprofessional as it gets. So that's why I was probably slightly let down by it. But at the end of the day, as long as they get the venues right, I'm pretty sure they won't be, the games won't be hosted by any of Guwahati, Vizag, Bangalore or Indore simply because of the World Cup happening there. I don't know how much of the fact that, Alana King in the WPL just mentioned I'm nicely making notes. BCCI must have heard, अच्छा आप notes बना रहे हो, अच्छा ठीक है, तो रहने दो, ये तो हम देंगे ही नहीं. But do you think, are there any rumors going around in terms of what kind of venues are they looking at right now?
Not really, Akshay. I haven't come across them myself. I would love if any of these World Cup venues could be considered because it just gives the players a better understanding and the chance to, adapt to the conditions.
But it's a double-edged sword, right?
It's absolutely a double-edged sword with a team like Australia that, will probably bring in their best resources to understand the conditions well. But that again just goes to show, the team itself is strong, right? You shouldn't be concerned about conditions and this and that because the IPL has been happening for so long. All overseas players come here, play anyways. But I hope even with the venues chosen now, I think this again brings me back to a point we did talk about. I don't know if it was during the watch-alongs or during one of our podcast episodes about when you look at Australia too, right? The way they allocate venues for their bilateral series as well, it's not always the big ones. It's like, your smaller
sort of the Allen Border field or something.
Yeah, you see, right, how the venues chosen are again not your big marquee ones, but the smaller ones you can have more crowds coming in, that whole bringing your family in, the community type feeling. So I hope with these venues that also sort of happens. So although I'm a little sad that the bigger venues didn't get, I hope the smaller venues, can bring in that sort of a thing. And the marketing and the promotion side is done really well. Because even now that they have mentioned the dates, why is the entire schedule not out? Like, what are you waiting for? So it's all of these questions that just invariably ends up bringing me to the question of why are you doing this? This is a World Cup that's happening at home. You have a chance to, undo the mistakes you did 12 years back, but then it just seems to be us, falling into repetitive patterns. A lot of people won't agree, but then I feel we could have done much better.
Yeah, a few things there to add. Firstly, of course, the venues for the 2025 ODI World Cup were announced a month after the venues for the 2026 T20 World Cup were
Don't get me
announced.
started on
Firstly,
this.
yeah. And secondly, about the whole community feeling that you brought up, yeah, to be honest, I don't think venues or cities have anything to do with it. It's a societal change that we're talking about here. We as a society, we don't look at sport as something that families do together or communities do together. No, it's never been that. It's usually friends going out. It's usually whatever. It's individuals more than
It's not collectivist.
yeah, exactly. It's not, at best it's groups of friends, but unlike say Australia or even Sri Lanka for that matter, it's never been families going out. It's not, families go out to theaters in India. Families don't go out to stadiums to watch games, at least not regularly. Maybe ऐसा 10 साल में एक बार गए just ऐसे ही because there was some game. There's a lot of reason also for that. Simply because firstly,
How expensive it is.
exactly, the demand is so high naturally. The price also go up because of that, which means that first of all, getting tickets are so hard, and even if you manage to get your hands on a few tickets, it's so expensive that it makes you wonder, is it really worth it? And then of course, you know the stadium infrastructure, you know the kind of facilities on offer for the audience. You spoke about how women's cricket seems to be an afterthought. I think the cricket viewing audience is the biggest afterthought in cricket in general.
Yeah, and this is an ODI World Cup we're talking about. So you can imagine it's like 8-10 hours. It's going to be very inconvenient for the public in general to just access toilets or like food, water.
For sure. Yeah, exactly. That too, matlab, it goes without saying. इसीलिए अभी I just hope at least, because Vizag, from what I understand, the venue is pretty good. The facilities are pretty decent. So I'm hoping that is the case.
Indore, Holkar Stadium.
Indore, I haven't heard much. I'm once again hoping that they're decent, because make no mistake, this is a global event. This is a World Cup we're talking about. Sure, it might not be men's cricket, it's women's cricket. It might be smaller in terms of viewership, in terms of the target audience. Capacity, though, I would still say is similar. But make no mistake, there will still be people coming from outside India to watch these games. Might not be, again, the numbers might not be comparable to the World Cup, to the men's World Cup, sorry. But there's still people coming in. So it is important for us to ensure that not only are we hospitable, but they also take back home some pleasant memories, some good experiences with them. That is one thing, of course. And the other thing, of course, was the fact that we all remember, even WPL for that matter, earlier this year, there was hardly any on-ground promotions or marketing that happened. In fact, up until like 2-3 days before the tournament began, there were so many fans of the sport asking, yeah, wait, the WPL is starting, right? Like, we hardly are seeing any ads, any promotions, nothing. The only ad that we saw was Virat Kohli being morphed into Elise Perry and all of that nonsense.
Ladki, tera naam kya hai? That ad, yeah.
So there's
all triggering ads will come. Just wait for it this World Cup.
Neha's just putting a disclaimer out there, of course. So I hope this time at least they get their act together. Not saying you need to spend big money, but at least start promoting on-ground promotions at the cities, or rather in the cities where the venues are.
Release the schedule so fans can make plans in advance. Something. Actually, the bare minimum. आप तो आगे का सोच रहे हो. At least schedule तो निकालो.
वो तो नहीं होगा. मैं बोला ना, audience is always an afterthought. Which is why I hope at least if you see, the thing is, cities like Indore, Guwahati, or even Vizag for that matter, they're not frequented by tourists or people in general. Yeah. When I think about going somewhere, I might even think about Mumbai, Delhi for a minute, but I would never think of Vizag so easily. So, because of which it's important that the locals, the people in Vizag, Indore, Guwahati flock the stadiums.
Yes.
Which means they need to be made aware कि भाई World Cup है, please जाके games देखो. For which it needs to be.
The promotions have to start. This is what, June already. The World Cup starts what, September 30th.
Yeah.
You don't have the schedule out. So where are the fans going to make plans? Even if people want to flock in, like people from other states, right?
Other states भाड़ में जाए. Like at the very least, कम से कम locals चले जाए. I just like that's the bare minimum, right? This is not even bare minimum. This is lesser than bare minimum. So I hope at least these sort of pointers are taken care of, and they start promoting it soon enough. The schedule firstly comes up soon enough.
The tickets are accessible. There's no black market thing that's going on, which I think invariably will end up happening. But don't price the tickets so low that there's like an entire mafia that's happening. So.
But I think invariably it won't be as bad as say men's cricket, because men's World Cup में तो ticket ही नहीं मिला. यहाँ पे I want to believe that the demand won't be just as high. Of course, a lot has changed in the last 12 years. Make no mistake, now women's cricket is a lot more of a household name than it was 12 years ago. So now people recognize Smriti Mandhana, Mithali Raj, Harmanpreet Kaur, Elise Perry, Jhulan Goswami by their faces. So it's definitely a lot more popular, which means you would see much greater demand and much bigger crowds for sure compared to say 2013. But we need to be comparing ourselves to the 2020 World Cup, to the 2022 World Cup, to the 2020. Okay, not 4 World Cup probably so much, but basically we need to compare ourselves to better hosts. Not compare ourselves to हाँ अरे तब तो एक ही बंदा आया था अभी 2 बंदे आ गए so
It's a
2x.
win-win and all this.
So I hope that is being taken into consideration. But anyways, I'm happy with the venues that have been decided for the World Cup. I'm happy with the fact that Bangalore gets to host both the final and the opener. And I hope to be able to catch Harmanpreet Kaur and her girls lift India's first ever World Cup trophy live from the Chinnaswamy Stadium.
It has been that sort of a year, so I really hope this is it for the women's team as well, the senior women's team, so to say, because the under-19 team has already won 2 trophies, and a lot of people are asking questions of the senior team. So what better occasion than this home World Cup to sort of make that impact? And even WPL, right, it has succeeded in spite of there being a lot of challenges, lack of promotion and everything. I hope this World Cup is also something like that.
Alright, there you've heard it. The World Cup starts, of course, from the 30th of September. It'll be India taking on someone. The schedule is yet to be announced. But the schedule for India's tour of England has been announced. It starts next month. Until then, it's a goodbye from all of us. Thank you so much for tuning to yet another episode of the Women's Cricket Podcast. Also, another PSA, for the next couple of episodes, we're planning on focusing on a few topics. One, in fact, that we have been contemplating, of course, is on a potential women's WTC and whether there's any place for something like that in the sport of women's cricket. Yeah. Do let us know if you have more such topics in mind, or if you agree with this topic, or if you think there's something else that you think should be discussed earlier. Until then, it's a goodbye from both of us. Thank you so much yet again. Have a great day, and importantly, have a great weekend.